Herschel. Hopefully we're going to learn actually how to do Twig debugging with Xdebug and know what to type into the Twig files, because that's always really difficult. I tried this in a Florida virtual online meetup and couldn't get Xdebug to break, and I think that was more of a PHP problem. So it's working now. I upgraded my PHP and it just kind of seemed to magically work. So I'm going to show you what the goal is right here. So I have a local setup of the lullabot.com website, and if you go to the podcast page and you just open up an episode node right here, you can see that there's some entity references, and we're going to try to print out fields from those entity references right here. There's a couple different ways to do that, but I'm going to show you the way to do it kind of manually within Twig, because that's the goal. There's some modules that could also help out. If we take a look at the actual content types here, let's go into the episode content type and into managed fields. You're going to see that there's a media entity reference for the media and for the audio, and then there's like hosts, which is an entity reference. We can get all these values, but the question is when you're doing Twig, how do you type that in? How do you figure that out? So we're gonna go for that. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to make sure I disable all the caches. So I'm going into you can do this in your settings.php or settings.local.php. I have settings.local.php set up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to uncomment these things, and what this does, this custom services.yaml that I have set up basically sets up kind of like an empty or a cache that goes to nothing. I have my Twig set up right here. All this does is tells Twig not to cache anything. And so at this point I save that file. Nothing should be cached, but I still need to do a drush CR just to do so. So cache is cleared. Site's going to be a little bit slower right now, but that's okay. But we're going to work. So let's get back into Drupal. Let's reload this just for the heck of it, and then we are going to turn on Xdebug. So I use MAMP just because Xdebug is really easy to use here. So I'm just going to check a box right here for Xdebug debugger. I'm on the PHP tab, and I'm going to hit the save button. It's going to restart the services. Now, like if you're under a Docker system like DDev or Lando, it has Xdebug options also. You just have to Google on how to do it. Xdebug can be a pain in the ass to set up, but in this case it's not because I'm using MAMP. So now I have Xdebug set up right here, and I am going to try to get that information. So I use PHP Storm for debugging here usually. As I stated before, it's kind of a little bit difficult. Like Twig is easy, but knowing what to type in your Twig files is hard, right? So anyway, I know my particular Twig file is under like node episode, right? So node episode full, and I have this Twig file right here. A bunch of markup kind of hard coded in there just because that's what we're doing. And if you have the devel module enabled, you can do Twig debugging. When I say Twig debugging, like Twig Xdebugging. Now, the newest version of PHP Storm, you can configure it where you can just like hit a button right here to set that stuff, but I don't have it configured that way, so we're just going to do it the old style way. And keep in mind that if you don't have PHP Storm, you can get debugging set up in things like VS Code or Sublime or whatever you're using, but you're just going to have to, set it up. So I'm going to type, if you have you do have to install the devel module in order to do it this way. And I'm going to use this function here called devel breakpoint, and I'm just going to print it out. And what this does is this will tell PHP Storm to break. So I'm just going to hit this button up here to turn on the debugging. You can see it's up here in the top right corner. And I'm going to go back here and hit refresh. And it should break unless I don't have the devel module enabled. So you can see right here it says unknown devel breakpoint function. We need to enable devel. So we're going to enable devel, and then we're going to refresh, and hopefully it'll break there. So let's refresh right here. And when we yeah, so we should see the little debugger thing come up right here. So it might come up with like something like this, but you just click on debugger. And now what Xdebug does is it actually pauses PHP, and so you have access to everything that you can see at this point of view, or like at this point in this Twig file, you can see what you have right here. And the cool thing is you're going to get in here and you type. You don't have to refresh. Like if you're using things like Kent or DPM, you have to refresh all the time. You don't have to do that. So everything within the context array right here is available in the Twig file. So you're going to see I'm going to expand this, and you're going to see things like the content array, and you're going to see like the node array if we're in a node, which we are, and things like that, right? So you're going to see all this type of stuff. So I can, like, for example, I can get down here and I can like type something like UUID, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit the play button over here to the left. It's going to play. It's going to load that, and I'm gonna refresh one more time right here. But you're going to see like UUID will be printed out like right at the top. So we're going to wait for this to load. It's going to take a little bit longer because, of course, we don't have any caching on, and we're just gonna watch it. So right here. So if I refresh one more time, we should see that UUID up there somewhere. I didn't put it in H1, so maybe it'll be hard to find. I don't know. And it might be hidden behind this heading, but we should see it in DevTools. Should see it right above this whenever the page reloads. Alright, so we got article. Now you see the UUID, it's right there. It's kind of hidden behind, like, but if I like say delete this, you'll see the UUID right there. So that's how we know like that we can print out stuff, because we saw it in there. But anyway, we don't want that in there. We just want develop breakpoint, and now we're going to refresh, and it's going to do a normal break. And now what we're going to do is we're going to try to bring in some information right here. Like, so let's say I want the name of the audio file or something like that. That's what we're going to try to get. And I already have that in here somewhere, but I'm going to show you how we got to that point. And we're still refreshing. Let's actually like make some little areas for right here. Let's get out of this header. And maybe right down here above the body, we're going to make a big old H1. And we're going to say, you know, my path to, it broke right here, but my path to the audio file is, and then we'll insert it right down here. So what do we have to type in here? Like, that's the question right here, right? So we can do, like, we know that like maybe the audio, it's an entity reference, it's, you know, field audio media, and but where do we go through from there? So we can look down here and we can see that, like, all right, we can browse the node object, and you don't kind of see a lot of stuff in here. You see fields, and you see the various different fields that we have here. So we can go into field audio media, but this doesn't give us information. You know, it's kind of like it's kind of a little weird, too. And we have to know a little bit of entity API magic in order to bring this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to go to evaluate expression right here. And we're going to make this a little bit bigger so we can see right here. So right here is kind of the magic in this evaluate expression right here. And you can also do things like watch statements and evaluate stuff in your watch statements and kind of look at there. But in this case, I'm going to use evaluate expression. And there's a couple like little functions or methods that we need to know within the node API and the entity API in order to get the stuff. So the first thing we can do is like we can put like this little arrow thing, and we're going to do the get fields function. And so you can see I have this little arrow right here, and it says get fields. This works on like all node objects. It works on, I believe, the entity API. I'm not an expert on this. I'm a front ender. But you can kind of see we have all these fields right here. This is pretty cool, right? So, and we already kind of knew this because number one, we can look at the managed fields, or we can even like browse down through that node array. but we can do this, right? So now we can see, we can find out like what fields we have. So in this particular case, what are we looking for? We're looking for field audio media, right? But what we're going to do right here is we're just going to type in field underscore audio underscore media and put parentheses after that. So we're field audio media parens. And that did not work. Let's see what happens. All right. No, we don't do that. We just do field audio media like that. And this comes out and it shows the result of everything in there. That's cool, right? All right, but we kind of already knew, so we could browse down and do that if we want. It's almost like a shortcut. But now we're gonna kind of go into the entity API and we're just gonna type in .entity. And so this is interesting right here. So now we have something that we haven't seen before because we're running this entity method or whatever you call it right on here. And so now we're on this media entity right now, right? And I think the media entity actually has another entity reference in here. Makes everything a little bit complicated. So what we're going to do is like, well, what fields do we have in here? Well, let's just do get all fields or get fields. And now we can see we have all these fields. So this entity that's attached to the field audio media has all these fields right here. So we're going to see like, all right, what do we have here? We have field media audio file. That looks pretty likely right there. That's what we want to get, right? So let's just type that in there. Field media audio file. And now we have this right here. So now we're actually in this right here. But this is an entity reference. So let's just put like another entity in here. And now we're getting pretty far down the rabbit hole right here. So we have all this right here, and we see the entity, and we can go into values, and you can do things like you can see the URI right in here. So this is actually the information that we're looking for right here. So when under the value stuff, you can typically just kind of type in the like whatever's there. So we should be able to type in, say, like URI right here, URI, and then value or something, you know. And yeah, so this is what we're looking for. And you could probably, you know, I was saying like you could under values, if you're looking for the file size, we could say like, you know, file size. This should work, and then value. So you get things like that. But we want to, what was it, URI, is that right? Yeah, so we want the URI. So this is what we have right here. So we're going to copy and paste all this crap. Now there's a couple things you can do. You could throw this into pre-process in your themename.theme file and clean it up. But so let's say we just want to do this in a Twig file just for the hell of it, because we're keeping our Twig file nice and dirty. So at this point, let's get back. I'm going to copy that. Let's close it out, and let's just maybe create like, just throw that in there just so we can reference it right here. So you have all this stuff. So we already know, like context is, we're going to start with node right here, but we want to get all this information right in here, right? So basically the way that Twig works is like you can replace all these like little arrows and parens and all that stuff with dots. So the first thing that we have in here is node. So we can type in node dot, and then we got field audio media, and you obviously don't want to misspell it. And then we got entity, and we got field media audio file dot, and then our entity. We're once again replacing the little arrows with dots. Then we got URI and then dot value. So this should work right here. So I'm gonna actually like just like comment this out in Twig here so it doesn't output. Oop, what did I do here? Control Z, undo, no. I just need to comment that out. There we go. So now I'm going to turn off my listening right here. I'm just going to hit play so it reloads on my screen over there. And let's get back to that screen. So this is going to reload, and we're going to have to refresh one more time after this because we just made a change, because that's just the way it works. And then we should see that file path there, and I'm going to show you like how to take that. So after we refresh, we should see it right around here above the body field. Should be a nice big old H1, so that should be fancy. So now we're going to hit refresh. And so the beauty of that, yeah, so you can see right here, it's using, you can see it's not styled properly, and it's using grid, so it's trying to fit into like a little grid row, but we got the public path right here. So yay, this is awesome. But like, of course, public path, like that's not quite what we want. That's easy to fix. We just do like, so Drupal, Drupal Twig functions. We're just gonna functions in Twig. So just like some functions that are you can use, and what we're going to use in this case is file URL right here. So you do file URL, and you can actually see like this right here is very similar to what we're doing. So we're just going to wrap everything in file URL. So we're going to do boop, boop, burp. Got to make sound effects or it doesn't work properly. Burp. And then now when I reload, it should actually load up fine. Yay, so here we are. We got sites, default files, and you got the path to the MP3. And obviously at this point you can mess around with that with JavaScript, you can style it, you can put it, like in this particular case, you know, we have it in the audio. We have an custom audio player right here that outputs all that crap. And yeah, so that's kind of the gist of it right there. But I wanted the key to it is like when you are like the cool thing is you don't have to like if I was using something like DPM or Kent, every single time I would like type an entity or type in this, I would have to reload the page, which would be like really annoying. And so with PHP Storm or with Xdebug, it doesn't have to be PHP Storm. This could be like something like VS Code. You could do it. But I like PHP Storm. I think that's what like a lot of professional Drupal developers tend to use, and even though I'm sure I don't, it's kind of like Excel, I don't use 10% of it. What I do use is really valuable for me. So that is the point, that is the part that I was unable to do last Tuesday. So hopefully this helps someone. And yeah, ta-da.